Echoes of the void born. The galaxy is a chorus. That is what the Thalari taught me from the moment I could understand the vibrations in the air. To the Thalari, a race of slender, iridescent beings with skin like shifting silk, every living thing has a song. They are telepaths, creatures of empathy who haven't known the touch of violence in 10,000 years. They communicate in hues of blue and soft melodic hums. And then, there was me. My name is Kale. Among the Thalari, I was known as the outlier. I was heavy. I was loud. My skin was thick and dull, and my mind was a fortress of silence. I couldn't hear the chorus. I couldn't sing with the collective. I was a creature of meat and bone living in a world of light and thought. The Thalari elders told me I was a void-born, a rare survivor found in the wreckage of an ancient, drifting colony ship near the edge of the Perseus Arm. They never told me what a human was. They never told me that my ancestors had once carved a path of fire through the stars. To me, I was just a clumsy, oversized student who had to learn to be gentle so I wouldn't break the fragile world around me. I spent 20 years believing I was a pacifist. I spent 20 years trying to dim my own internal flame to match the cool, blue tranquility of Thalara. But the universe has a way of reminding you exactly who you are, especially when you're trying to hide from it. The Krell did not sing. When their fleet entered the Thalara system, the chorus didn't just stop, it screamed. The Krell are a hive mind of predatory silicon and obsidian. They are the scavengers of the stars, moving from system to strip mine planets and enslave any race that can't defend itself. And the Thalari, they couldn't defend themselves. They didn't even have a concept for weapon. To them, the Krell were a physical impossibility, a race that lived only to destroy. I was in the Great Archives when the first drop pods hit the city of Ethelgard. The impact shook the foundations of the world. Through the telepathic resonance of the city, I felt a wave of pure, unadulterated terror wash over the Thalari. It was like 1,000 voices crying out in a language I couldn't understand, but the pain was universal. I saw my mentor, Elder Valen, collapse to his knees. His beautiful, glowing skin turned a sickly gray. "The void," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Kale, the void has teeth." I looked out the window. The sky was filled with black, jagged needles. The Krell soldiers, monstrous, four-armed brutes encased in bio-armor, were marching through the streets. They weren't using guns. They were using harpoons and serrated blades, enjoying the sensory feast of Thalari suffering. For the first time in my life, I felt something stir in the pit of my stomach. It wasn't the fear the Thalari felt. It was something darker. Something hot. It felt like a low growl echoing from 1,000 years ago. The Krell broke into the archives an hour later. They wanted the Thalari's data crystals, the sum total of their history and culture. Elder Valen tried to speak to them. He tried to offer peace. The Krell commander, a towering nightmare of black scales, didn't even listen. He raised a spiked mace and prepared to crush the elder's skull. "Stop," I said. My voice sounded strange. It wasn't the melodic hum of the Thalari. It was a harsh, guttural sound. The Krell commander turned, his multifaceted eyes clicking as they scanned me. He didn't see a threat. He saw a soft, fleshy creature without armor or claws. He laughed a sound like grinding stones. He lunged at me. In that microsecond, the world changed. The silence in my mind didn't just break, it detonated. Time didn't slow down, but my perception of it sharpened. I saw the arc of his mace. I saw the weakness in his knee joints. I saw the pulsing vein in his neck. My body, which had always felt heavy and clumsy, suddenly felt like a coiled spring. I didn't think. I reacted. I stepped inside his guard. My fist a heavy, blunt instrument of bone connected with his chest plate. The silicon armor, designed to withstand plasma fire, shattered. The commander was thrown back 30 feet, smashing through a crystalline pillar. The other Krell froze. They looked at their leader, then back at me. They couldn't compute what they were seeing. A biological creature had just used raw physical force to overpower a Krell elite. I looked at my hands. They were shaking, but not from fear. My blood felt like it was boiling. My vision was tinged with a faint, predatory red. Kale Valen whispered, his eyes wide with horror. What are you? I didn't have the words. But the archives did. As the Krell soldiers lunged at me, a nearby data terminal, damaged by the fighting, flickered to life. It displayed an ancient file, one the Thalari had kept hidden even from themselves. It showed a symbol, a blue marble of a planet, and a name written in a dead language. Homo sapiens. And beneath it, a warning from the first age, beware the Voidborn. They do not share. They do not yield. They are the fire that consumes the dark. What followed wasn't a fight. It was a slaughter. I didn't have a sword, so I took one from the first Krell I killed. It was heavy, made of a dense obsidian alloy. In the hands of a Krell, it was a tool of terror. In my hands, it felt like an extension of my soul. I moved through the city like a whirlwind. The Thalari watched in a daze of psychic shock as their clumsy ward became a demon of the battlefield. I wasn't fighting with the grace of a warrior, I was fighting with the efficiency of an apex predator. Every time a Krell blade drew blood, I didn't weaken. I got faster. The adrenaline, that ancient human chemical, was acting like a fuel. My ancestors hadn't been telepaths. They hadn't been beings of light. They were hunters who had survived ice ages and world wars. And that legacy was screaming in my ears. I cleared the archives, I cleared the Great Plaza. I hunted the Krell through the winding alleys of Ethelgard. They tried to use their hive mind to coordinate, but how do you coordinate against a storm? I wasn't following a pattern. I was acting on pure, unfiltered human instinct. The Krell began to retreat. For the first time in their history, they were feeling something they didn't have a word for: terror. They looked at me and didn't see a person. They saw the ghost of a species that should have stayed dead. By sunset, the Krell fleet was in full retreat, jumping to hyperspace to escape the demon of Thalara. The city was saved, but the silence that followed was heavier than the war. I stood in the center of the plaza, covered in black Krell blood and my own red life force. My sword was notched and broken. The adrenaline was finally fading, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. The Thalari approached me. They didn't cheer. They didn't embrace me. They kept their distance. Through the air, I could feel their song. It was no longer a chorus of peace. It was a dirge of fear. They looked at me and saw the truth. They saw the human. They saw the violence that lay dormant in my DNA, the terrible potential for destruction that had once nearly burnt the galaxy to a cinder. Elder Valen stepped forward. He didn't look at me with hate, but with a profound sadness. "You saved us, Kale," he said softly. "But the song of Thalaric can never be the same. You have brought the fire back into the garden." "I did what I had to do," I said, my voice echoing in the quiet city. "We know," Valen replied. "And that is why the galaxy feared your kind. Because you can do what must be done. And you will never stop until the work is finished." I couldn't stay. I was an echo of the Voidborn, and the Void was calling me back. I took a small Krell scout ship, the only thing left in the wreckage that still worked. I didn't have a destination. I only had the coordinates from the archives, the ghost of a system called Sol that had been lost for a millennium. As I broke the atmosphere of Thalara, I looked back one last time. The iridescent cities were glowing again, trying to find their peace. But I knew I didn't belong there. I was a human. I was a creature of the dark, a guardian of the flame, and a nightmare for those who would do harm. The galaxy is a chorus, yes. But every chorus needs a protector. Every light needs a shadow to define it. I engaged the hyperdrive. The stars blurred into lines of white light. I didn't know if there were any other humans left. I didn't know if Earth was even there. But as I felt the hum of the engine and the weight of the sword at my side, I knew one thing for certain. The outlier was gone. The human had returned. And the stars were finally listening. The story of Kale and the Thalari is a powerful reminder that our nature isn't something we can outrun. We often think of humanity as our flaws, our capacity for anger and war, but Kale shows us that those very traits are what allow us to protect the things that are beautiful and fragile. We are the echoes of the Voidborn, a species defined by the fire in our blood and the indomitable will to survive when the rest of the universe would rather fade away. It's a balance we all walk, the struggle between being the clumsy janitor of peace and the berserker of necessity. If this epic journey of self-discovery and galactic warfare kept you on the edge of your seat for the last hour, please let me know by hitting that like button. It truly is the best way to support the channel and ensure we can keep producing these deep dive sci-fi narratives. If you haven't already, please subscribe and join our community of watchers. We are dedicated to exploring the furthest reaches of human potential and alien mystery, and your presence makes the journey worthwhile. Make sure that notification bell is on so you're the first to know when a new transmission arrives. And for those of you who want to dive even deeper into the mysteries of the void, I highly recommend watching the suggested video on your screen right now. It takes the themes we discussed today and pushes them to their absolute limit. Thank you for watching, for listening, and for carrying the flame. Stay safe in the deep dark, and I'll see you in the next one.